Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm making a video that I haven't really been looking forward to making because, well, I'm an optimistic guy. And, well, there's not a whole lot to be optimistic about with this team. The New York Knicks offseason preview is here. Let's get right into it. Their coach is Tom Thibodeau. Just hired him. Obviously not going anywhere unless it's a John Beeline situation. Or I guess keeping it in New York, a Carlos Beltran situation where the guy got relieved of his duties before managing a single game for the Mets. But obviously that's not going to happen. Tibbs wasn't involved in any huge cheating scandals where they banged on trash cans. So, yeah, he'll be their coach this season, and it'll be interesting to see how that works with their young players like RJ Barrett. Maybe Tibbs can make him into a defensive menace. That'd be outstanding to see. And obviously, there's some offensive potential there too. So perhaps this is the perfect developmental coach for the Knicks to have picked up. In the draft, they have the 8th pick, which is an interesting spot to be drafting. I actually don't think that it's as bad as a lot of Knicks fans made it out to be. It's more of just the fact that they can't get lucky, but I think that this is a pretty good spot to be at in the draft. I think the number one guy on their board here should be Killian Hayes. Super good combo guard, played for Ulm in France. Left-handed, little left-hand dominant, but from what I've read, that isn't too big of a deal to NBA scouts. He's played at a high level in that French league, and he's gonna be a really really good combo guard, good lead guard for whatever team ends up with him. However, I think he's more than likely going to go before the 8th pick. So if they can't get him, I think Obi Toppin is a perfect second option. Obi is a really good offensive option. He's obviously one of the most athletic players in the draft. We've all seen his dunk compilation from when he was in college, and those in-game dunks that he threw down were absolutely insane. He's got a pretty good jumper too. So on offense, this guy's going to be very difficult to deal with, and I think that he can be a really, really good complementary option on that end of the floor for this team. The only problem with Obi is his defense. He doesn't really have the ability to guard more than one position. He'll be able to guard fours decently well in the NBA, but with fives, in college he really struggled, banging around inside with big guys. He got pushed around a lot, and his footwork wasn't terrific. And his lateral quickness is pretty poor, and obviously that can be improved by building up some hip strength. But I don't think he'll be able to guard threes either. So he's not a very switchable defender, and he's not very good guarding in the paint. However, I think that those can be made up for on this Knicks team because they have one of the best young defensive centers in the entire league in Mitchell Robinson. So I think that Obi Toppin's a really, really nice fit. He can slide right in at the 4 alongside Robinson and right away be a really promising piece to the young core for this team if that's the route they end up going. If they either don't like Toppin and Hayes, or those two are not on the board for them, two other options I could see this team going with are Tyrese Halliburton and Devin Vassell. Halliburton from Iowa State, Vassell out of Florida State. These two are both really, really good defenders for rookies. They're going to come in and be decent on that end of the floor already, and that's definitely something that Tibbs is going to value very highly. They also each have a bit of offensive traits that are really good. Vassell, excuse me, I always say that one wrong, is a really good three-point shooter. He's got to work on his off-the-bounce game a little bit, but the three-point shot is really outstanding there. He's going to be a good 3-and-D player for you right off the bat, and who knows, maybe he can develop into an even better player than that on the offensive end of the floor with a few years of NBA development. He's got a few decent moves getting to his mid-range shot, And I really like Devin Vassell, and I think that this would be a good falling spot for him, playing for Tibbs. Otherwise, Halliburton could be that lead guard of the future for this team. I saw a comparison of him to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I really like that comparison. He's kind of a tall point guard, a guy that's going to be a pretty good defender. He can handle the ball, but he can also play off the ball because he's a really good catch-and-shoot guy. You'd like to see some improvement off of his off-the-dribble shooting, but catch-and-shoot, he's done really well. He has kind of a funky shot form, but his shots have gone in. So I think that this is another guy who they should really be looking at in this area. Halliburton is another one that could maybe not be there because I think that he would be a really nice fit with the Hawks with the 6th pick. So maybe Halliburton isn't here at 8, but if he is, then that's a really good option for the Knicks to snag. So my big board for them would be Hayes, Toppin, Halliburton, and Vassell in that order. With the 27th pick, I think that this could be a spot where they could target a lead guard of the future if they don't end up taking a Killian Hayes or a Tyrese Halliburton with their 8th overall pick. I think that there's going to be some really good options on the board here. Guys like Grant Riller, Malachi Flynn, Devon Dotson, Cassius Winston. All of those guys have potential to be really good guards in the NBA, really good point guards. And 27 is right around the spot where I could see them falling. Maybe Malachi Flynn and Grant Riller are gone at this point, so they're forced to choose between Dotson and Winston. And I think that those two are both solid prospects. I like Dotson a bit better just because he's a bit more of an athletic player than Cassius Winston, but Winston's very crafty, and I think that he'll be just fine at the NBA level. If they don't want to take a point guard, this could be a nice spot for them to take a wing. Someone like Elijah Hughes, Robert Woodard, Cassius Stanley, Josh Green. There's a couple other names that would go in this area. And Desmond Bane being one of them. So they could definitely look at those guys. They also have the 38th pick, which is a good spot to be picking. I also think there's a couple more guys in this area who I think could be really, really good value propositions. They could draft any of those guys I listed at the 27th pick if they end up dropping in the draft. Otherwise, guys like Paul Reed, Sam Merrill, and Emmanuel Quickley could be really good options for this team. I've said it in previous videos, but those three are really the guys that I like the most. If you're taking a second-round pick, I think that they are all going to end up being rotational NBA players at some point. In terms of trades, this team's always going to be in the rumors to trade for a big name. Guys like CP3, Zach LaVine, Victor Oladipo, Bradley Beal. They've been in rumors for all of those guys and will continue to be so, I believe. Should they make those trades? I'd say no, because they're going to be set to have a lot of cap space in 2020, 2021, and the bottom half of the Eastern Conference is going to be pretty weak this year. I think that this team could be right in the running for the 8th seed if they make some of the free agency moves that I will be highlighting in a little bit, but I don't think that a big trade needs to happen for this team, especially because they'd be forced to give up one of their primary young players to their core in Mitchell Robinson or RJ Barrett. If they can get a star without giving up one of those two, go for it, but I don't really see that happening because there's not too much value on this team outside of those guys. They could also trade the 8th pick and try to move up. I actually really like the idea of them trading the 8th pick and Mitchell Robinson to move up to 2. I think that that would be outstanding for them. Make that trade with the Warriors. But I only like that trade for them if they know for a fact that the Timberwolves will not be taking LaMelo Ball number 1 overall because Anthony Edwards just kind of clashes with RJ Barrett, and I think that he's clearly the second best player, or him and Ball are clearly the 2 best players in the draft, with Wiseman as the 3rd best. So I don't think that you would want to take anyone other than one of those 2 at the 2nd overall pick if you're the Knicks. So if it's not LaMelo Ball that you're trading up for, I think that they should just take their pick at 8, Killian Hayes, Obi Toppin, Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Vassell. All great options for them there. All guys that would maybe fit their roster better than Anthony Edwards. So unless they're trading up for LaMelo Ball, I would not do it. But if LaMelo is still there at number 2, yes, please. I don't think Mitchell Robinson is too valuable to hang on to instead of trading up to get a guy like LaMelo. In terms of free agency, they have a lot of team options. Guys like Bobby Portis, Taj Gibson, Wayne Ellington, Reggie Bullock, and Elfrid Payton. I think that there are definitely a few of these guys that they could accept their team option. Elfrid Payton being one of them. Just a solid backup point guard for them. I think that he could be definitely a good backup point guard. Not a great starter. And if they don't have another point guard, they could bring him back as a starter, but I think he'd be a good backup. Bobby Portis, I would say no. $15 million is too much for that guy. And as I'll talk about in the free agency targets, there's someone that I think they should clear up some cap space for because I think that he'd be a great fit on this roster. Wayne Ellington would be someone they could bring back. He's shown definitely been a good shooter at times during his NBA career, and this Knicks team needs more shooting. Last year they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA, so that's an area where they can improve, and keeping shooters would definitely help with that. Same with Reggie Bullock. And Taj Gibson can be a decent backup big man for them, so if they want to keep him around, that's fine. And then guys that are just unrestricted free agents are Mo Harkless and Damian Dotson, but I think D-Dot might be restricted. Both of those guys they could keep around just as solid wing players. Harkless was a starter on this team pretty much from the time he came over in the Marcus Morris trade. So I would not be surprised if they kept him around on something similar to the contract he had this time around, maybe something like 4 years, $28 million, I think could be something they give him. Maybe it's a shorter contract for more money annually, a 2-year, $20 million. That probably makes the most sense. Maybe a team option on that. And guys, they should be targeting Fred VanVleet. I think that he is a perfect option for this team. He could be their solution at the point guard. He could speed up this rebuild a little bit, make them a playoff contender next season, make them a team that is desirable in free agency in the summer of 2021 so that they could make a run at a superstar. So I think that if they sign Fred VanVleet, this team has some pieces that could make them close to playoff contention. And they could, similar to the Brooklyn Nets, make that jump. There's a lot of free agents that could be looking at this team. I also think they could do some of that 1+1 nonsense they were doing this offseason where they sign players to 2-year deals with a team option for the second year so that they have cap space every offseason. And if one of those guys takes a step forward, then terrific. You found a rotation player by accident. So some guys they could give those 1+1 deals to could be like Jabari Parker, Josh Jackson, Harry Giles. Just some young players who showed potential out of the draft but haven't really worked out with their current teams. So maybe they end up blossoming into that player that people thought they could be when they went early in the first round. In terms of their 2020-2021 rotation, potentially, I am saying this assuming they sign Fred VanVleet because I think that would be an amazing signing for them. Fred could bring some of that shooting that they've been missing. He's a winning player, and he could bring some of that culture over from the Raptors that just made them into one of the best organizations in the entire NBA. I think that Fred would be perfect for this team, and I'm going to be talking about that a lot this offseason, I feel like, because Fred VanVleet to the Knicks is something that really needs to happen for this organization. So he'd be at the point guard, RJ at the 2, Mo Harkless at the 3, assuming they re-sign him, and I do think they should. He's a solid 3-and-D wing. Obi Toppin at the 4, because I think that that's the guy they're most likely going to end up drafting. I don't think Hayes is going to be there, and I think that Toppin is perfect alongside Mitchell Robinson. So I think that that's definitely the guy they should be targeting if Killian Hayes isn't there, and I don't think he will be. I'd rather have Toppin than Halliburton or Vassell if I am the Knicks, just because of The potential of signing Fred VanVleet just gets me so excited, and I'd rather have him than Halliburton. Vassell could work too, but he just isn't as much of a potential pick as Obi Toppin, because if Obi Toppin can work it out on defense, he has the potential to be really good. Mitchell Robinson at the 5, Alfred Payton, Wayne Ellington, Taj Gibson, Reggie Bullock, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox, whoever they take with their 27th and 38th picks. Those guys can make up the bench, but it's really the core of Fred VanVleet, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson that gets me excited. If they have a group like that moving forward, this can be a playoff team next season, I believe. And I think that they'll be able to make a run at a superstar in the summer of 2021. Obviously, New York is a very desirable market, and if they have shown that they can win and be a playoff team, that's perfect. Maybe Thibodeau can get them to the 8 seed, similar to what he did with the Timberwolves when that was a young team. And I'd be all for it, because this team just has been losing for so long, and I'd love to see these poor fans have a little success. Poor Stephen A. Smith. He's having a very, very bad day. So, if they get their draft pick right, sign Fred VanVleet, there's a lot of things that can go well for them this offseason, and I hope they do. Thanks for watching. Drop a like, leave a comment on what your thoughts on this team, what they should do with their draft pick, what they should do with their cap space. And I hope that you enjoyed the video. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for me, and I will see you all again very soon.